My name is Kate Olson, and at 43, I've lived through enough storms to know when another one is forming on the horizon. But this one, I didn't see coming, not even a shadow of it. I have two children, Sam, 21, and Liz, 16, from my late husband, Lucas. They were 10 and 15 when Lucas was taken from us. One reckless driver, one phone call that shattered the world we knew. He had been my calm, my compass, and I spent years adrift after his loss, clinging only to my children and the fragile routines that kept us functional. For them, I made myself a promise. Don't date again until they've had time to breathe, time to grieve, time to understand that I wasn't replacing their father. 3 years later, when the grief no longer drowned me every morning, I met Adrian. Our relationship unfolded slowly, cautious, careful, almost deliberate. I appreciated that about him. He never pushed, never forced his way into the spaces still haunted by Lucas's memory. For an entire year, I kept him separate from the kids, unwilling to risk blending our worlds too quickly. And after those years, 3 of dating, 1 engagement, I'd convinced myself we had finally reached something stable, something hopeful. Our lives weren't woven together seamlessly yet, but there was respect, or so I'd believed. Adrian wasn't close with Sam or Liz, but he'd never tried to replace Lucas, and I valued that more than he understood. In the early days, though, he was insecure. Would you still be with him? Do you ever wish he hadn't died? Am I just filling a space? Questions like that cut deep, but I always reassured him gently. And eventually, he stopped asking. Or I thought he had. 2 nights ago, everything unraveled. My parents hosted a small dinner to celebrate our engagement. Just family, my parents, Lucas's sister, her husband, my 2 kids, Adrian and me. The kind of warm gathering where the air hums with memories and soft laughter. My mother fussed over the food, my father retold stories he'd forgotten he'd already shared, and for a moment, the world felt peaceful. Halfway through the meal, my mother raised her glass and spoke with that tender tremble she gets whenever she mentions Lucas. I'm just grateful Kate found a new spark with Adrian, the way she once had with Lucas. It was meant as a bridge, a blessing, something to honor both the past and the future. But then Adrian laughed, a sharp, jarring sound that didn't belong in the moment. He said, honestly, I'm glad he died. Otherwise, I'd have never gotten her to myself. Silence filled the room with a suffocating heaviness. I felt my breath freeze, mid-inhale, mid-smile. Lucas's sister's fork clattered against her plate. Sam's jaw clenched, the muscle ticking in silent fury. And Liz, sweet, sensitive Liz, her eyes filled with stunned betrayal before she pushed her chair back so abruptly the legs scraped the floor. She didn't say a word, just walked out of the house, shoulders tight, fists closed. Adrian tried to laugh it off. A joke, just a joke, everyone, relax. But there was no laughter, no easing of tension, just the echo of his words bouncing around the table like shattered glass. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't process how the same man who claimed to love me could say something so cruel, so grotesquely indifferent to the man who shaped my life and the children I was raising. Sam stood, gave me one long, searching look, waiting for me to say something, anything, but my throat refused to work. The dinner ended in fragments. Goodbyes mumbled, chairs scraping, Adrian grabbing his coat, oblivious to the wreckage around him. As we drove home, the silence in the car was colder than any winter night I'd lived through. Adrian tried to brush it off, calling it a morbid joke, but his voice felt distant, wrong, hollow. A tone I realized I'd never heard from him before. 3 days have passed. Liz hasn't spoken to me. Not a word. No texts. No calls. Just a slammed bedroom door and a grief I can feel even when she's not in the room. The guilt sits in my chest like a stone. Desperate, I turned to Sam, asking him what I should do. His answer was steady, but his eyes held a pain I couldn't ignore. As an adult, Mom, I don't care who you marry. But Liz doesn't deserve to hear comments like that about Dad, and I don't want that kind of man around my sister. His words pierced right through the fog in my mind, because he was right. What Adrian said wasn't just a misstep. It was a fracture, a revelation, a glimpse of something cold lurking beneath the careful charm he'd shown for 3 years. And now I'm faced with a truth I've been avoiding. If I stay with Adrian, I risk losing Liz's trust, Sam's respect, the family I hold above everything. The engagement I once felt so sure of now feels like a fragile shell, collapsing under the weight of one sentence Adrian can never take back. As I lie awake at night, replaying the moment, his laugh, his tone, Liz's wounded eyes, I can feel it. A decision is coming, and whatever it is, it will change our lives. For 3 nights, sleep avoided me like a punishment. I lay awake listening to the quiet creaks of the house, wondering how something so small, a single sentence, could detonate my family's fragile peace. But the truth was becoming harder to ignore. It wasn't just the joke, it was everything beneath it, everything I had chosen not to see. That evening, while Adrian was at work, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I called Sam and asked if he could come over. He lived only a few blocks from campus, but he sounded concerned the moment he heard my voice. "Is Liz okay?" he asked. "No," I admitted, "but we need to talk. All of us." He arrived 20 minutes later, letting himself in with the familiarity of someone who still felt like this was home. Liz was already in the living room, arms crossed, shoulders tight, eyes red. I took the armchair across from them, my palms sweating, my voice trembling before I even spoke. "I don't think the wedding is going to happen," I said quietly. Liz looked up sharply. Sam's jaw tightened. "And I want to apologize to both of you." Liz didn't respond. Sam watched me waiting. "I'm sorry I didn't shut down Adrian's joke the moment it happened," I continued. "I froze. And I let you believe I agreed with him. I didn't. I never could." A long weighted silence followed. Then Liz spoke, her voice cracking with a mix of anger and heartbreak. "It's not just the joke, Mom." The words felt like a blade slipping between my ribs. She wiped her cheeks, frustrated at herself for crying. "For 2 years," she whispered, "I've felt like Adrian was trying to push us away from you." I leaned forward sharply. "Liz, what?" She didn't hesitate now. When Sam mentioned moving out for sophomore year, who encouraged him the most, who told him it was healthier to have his own place, who kept saying it was time for you to have a life again. Her voice trembled, but her gaze didn't waver. "It was Adrian, always Adrian." My stomach dropped. I remembered those conversations, the way Adrian had smiled approvingly when Sam talked about moving, the too eager nod, the suggestions he framed as advice. I looked at Sam. "Is that true?" He sighed. "Before I announced I wanted to move, I didn't feel pressured. But after, yeah." He kept pushing. Every conversation somehow circled back to it. Liz wasn't finished. "And when it's my turn to choose a college guest, who keeps telling me to go out of state, even though I told him repeatedly that I want to go to the same school as Sam," her words came out louder now, sharper. "He wants me gone, Mom, so he can have you all to himself." I felt my breath leave my lungs in a slow, painful exhale. I wanted to deny it, to tell her she was overthinking, misreading, projecting. But deep down, I knew she wasn't wrong. The signs had been there, small, subtle, easy to brush aside. The eager encouragement when Sam packed. The excitement in Adrian's voice whenever Liz discussed her future far, far away. The way he always said, "You'll finally get your freedom, Kate." Freedom from what? From whom? Liz spoke again, softer, this time her voice raw. "I didn't tell you because I thought you were happy, and I thought if I said anything it would sound like I was trying to ruin that." My heart broke open. I moved to sit beside her, taking her hands in mine. "You would never ruin my happiness," I whispered. "You are my happiness. You and your brother." Liz finally let herself cry, her forehead resting against my shoulder. Sam reached out, squeezing my arm with a silent, supportive strength. There we stayed, a small circle tight with grief and love and unspoken truths. After a while, Sam cleared his throat. "Mom, look." He paused carefully. "I'm not telling you what to do, but if a joke like that was the first time he slipped, fine, but it wasn't. He's been showing us who he is all along." Liz nodded without lifting her head. "And I'm scared," she said quietly, "that if I leave for school one day, you'll be alone with him, and that he'll keep pushing us away from you until it works." The idea shattered me. All this time, I thought I was protecting my children by being cautious with my grief, by pacing my dating life, by choosing someone who seemed stable and kind. Instead, I'd brought home a man who wanted my kids to disappear. Emotion choked my voice as I replied, "I'm so sorry for not seeing it sooner, for letting you feel unsafe, for making you walk on eggshells in your own home." Liz lifted her face long enough to meet my eyes. "Do you still want to marry him?" Her question wasn't accusatory, it was scared, vulnerable. I didn't hesitate. "No," I said. The truth came out cleanly, painfully, without room for doubt. "I don't. This isn't the future I want, and it's not a future I'll put you through." Sam leaned back, relief washing over him visibly. Liz squeezed my hand tighter. We talked for 2 hours, unpacking every tense moment, every subtle comment Adrian had ever made, every instance my kids had swallowed discomfort so I wouldn't feel torn. By the end of it, the air felt clearer, our bond bruised but not broken, damaged but healing. "Whatever happens with Adrian, I told them you two come first. Always." Sam nodded. Liz wiped her eyes, her voice barely above a whisper. Thank you, Mom. There was only one step left now. Tomorrow morning, I would end my engagement. The next morning felt unnervingly quiet, the kind of quiet that settles over a home right before something irrevocable happens. I woke early, long before Adrian would, and moved through the kitchen with a heaviness that made even the smallest tasks, pouring water, washing a cup, feel strangely ceremonial. By 9 a.m., I had already spoken to my mother on the phone. She'd been devastated, apologizing over and over for bringing up Lucas during the dinner. But after speaking with her, it was painfully clear she meant no harm. Her comment was meant to honor both my past and future, and I reassured her she hadn't caused any of this. None of it. The fault sat squarely elsewhere. By 10:30, I slipped my phone into my back pocket and hit record. I didn't expect Adrian to become violent. I truly didn't, but too many people had warned me to be cautious. And after everything I'd learned from Sam and Liz, I wasn't taking chances with anything anymore. Not my peace, not my kids, not my safety. Adrian finally woke around 11 to 10, groggy and confused as he stepped into the living room. I was already seated on the edge of the couch, hands clasped tightly, the air thick with unspoken tension. We need to talk, I said. He blinked, surprised by my tone. Right now? Yes, I answered steady. Right now. It's serious. He sat across from me, still rubbing sleep from his eyes, oblivious to the fact that the ground beneath him was about to give way. I started with the simplest truth. The joke you made about Lucas at my parents' dinner, it hurt everyone in that room. It hurt Sam, it hurt Liz, it hurt me. And you didn't acknowledge that. Not once. He shifted in his seat, trying to mask the discomfort with a stiff shrug. I told you it was a joke. A dark one, sure. But I cut him off. It wasn't just a joke, Adrian. It revealed something. Something I can't ignore. He frowned. Are we really doing this again? Yes, I said, voice firm. We are. And we're going to do more than that. I took a slow breath. Sam and Liz told me the truth. About how you've been treating them. About the pressure you put on Sam to move out. About encouraging Liz to leave for an out-of-state school, even though she's been clear she doesn't want that. This time he didn't shrug. He stiffened. Kate, kids exaggerate things. They always... No. My voice sharpened. They didn't. They were afraid that if they said anything, it would ruin my happiness. He looked at me, his face tightening. So what? You talked to them. They cried a little, and suddenly, I'm the villain. Adrian, I said quietly, they are my children. And you tried to push them out of their own home. Something flickered in his eyes then. A flash-quick defense of angry. And what if I did? He snapped. Did you expect me to spend the rest of my life raising someone else's kids? The air left the room. For a moment I heard nothing. Not the hum of the refrigerator, not the soft tick of the wall clock. Just that sentence ringing in my ears like a siren. There it was. The truth beneath every subtle suggestion. The truth behind his encouragements and advice. The truth he had hidden behind gentle smiles and carefully measured patience. I stared at him numb. You knew what you were getting into when you proposed, I whispered. Well, he muttered, I didn't think they'd be around forever. That was it. The mask fell. The charm cracked. And who he truly was stood clear as day. I rose from the couch, slow, deliberate, steady. This relationship is over. Adrian shot up from his seat. Kate, no. Listen, I'll apologize. I'll talk to them, your parents, your sister-in-law, everyone. I'll fix this. You can apologize, I said. And I think you should. But it won't change the fact that this relationship is done. His face twisted with panic. He reached toward me, then stopped himself when he saw how I stepped back. Why won't you even try? He pleaded, voice breaking. You still love me. I do, I said sadly. But I love my children more, and I won't put them through this again. He tried to argue, tried to explain, but everything he said only confirmed what I'd finally allowed myself to see. He didn't love me as a whole. He loved the version of me that existed without my children. Within minutes, his panic curdled into bitterness. He stormed off to the bedroom and began packing a bag, clothes stuffed carelessly drawers, slammed hangers, clattering. I stayed in the living room, listening to the chaos of a life unraveling. When he finally walked out the front door with his duffel slung over his shoulder, he didn't look back. Not once. The moment the door clicked shut behind him, the house felt different. Lighter. Still hurting, but no longer suffocating. I sat down and emailed the recording to myself just in case. A small act of self-preservation after years of ignoring my instincts. Then I picked up the phone. First I called Sam. Adrian's gone, I said softly. My son let out a long breath. Good. Mom. You did the right thing. Then Liz. She asked only 2 words, forever gone. Yes, I whispered, forever. Her exhale was shaky, relieved. I'm coming home, she said. And just like that, something inside me settled. Not healed, not yet, but anchored. By the time the sun dipped low behind the neighbor's roofline, I had already changed the locks. Adrian texted, called, pleaded, sent long messages about mistakes and misunderstandings. I didn't respond. He could come back only once more to gather the rest of his things, and after that, the door would stay closed. Tonight, the silence in the house felt different. Not cold, not hostile, just quiet. The quiet of a storm that has finally passed, leaving debris behind, but also clearing the sky. I still loved him, but sometimes loving someone isn't enough. Sometimes choosing your children means breaking your own heart piece by piece. Tomorrow, I would start rebuilding what really mattered. After Adrian walked out of my life, the house felt strangely peaceful, like a forest, finally quiet after a wildfire. There was ash everywhere, yes, but also a stillness that allowed me to breathe again, a softness that had been missing for far too long. Sam and Liz came home that weekend with grocery bags, jokes, and a careful kind of warmth, the kind you offer someone who's bruised but healing. Liz moved back into her room almost immediately, hovering around the kitchen whenever I cooked, asking about homework and future plans, like she was reclaiming territory she feared she'd lost. Sam lingered too, though in his own way. He returned to his apartment most nights, but he visited more often sometimes, with dinner, sometimes to fix something that didn't truly need fixing. Sometimes just to sit on the couch and exist in the same room as me. It felt like we were slowly learning how to be a family again. Adrian stayed at a friend's house for nearly a week after the breakup. During that time, I boxed his things carefully, clothes folded neatly, toiletries packed away, his books lined up in a small pile near the door. It wasn't kindness, it was closure, a way of clearing space both physically and emotionally. And I changed the locks. I hadn't originally thought about it, but when several people online suggested it, the logic was undeniable. The change felt symbolic, a final boundary, a final act of reclaiming my home. When Adrian came to collect his things, he was quiet, strangely small. He handed me the engagement ring without being asked, a gesture that felt like another door closing. He didn't apologize that day, not sincerely, not deeply, but the silence between us said everything that needed to be said. A few weeks later, he tried reaching out again. Messages, social media, late-night calls I didn't answer. I ignored them until ignoring wasn't enough, then blocked him everywhere. Sam and Liz did the same, and soon the notifications stopped. That was the real end. A year passed more quickly than I expected. I turned 44, Liz turned 17. Sam edged closer to 22. Life didn't just resume, it reshaped itself. And so did I. The grief of losing Adrian lingered only in faint, dull echoes, a bruise rather than a wound. It hurt when pressed, but it no longer throbbed on its own. Over time, the sadness softened into clarity. Not because I stopped caring, but because I stopped idealizing. I finally saw that the man I loved existed only in the version I built in my mind. The real Adrian had shown himself clearly. It just took too long for me to look. Meanwhile, Sam was thriving. His part-time job lit something in him, a spark of independence and pride I hadn't seen since he was a determined little boy, insisting he carry his own school bag. I teased him sometimes, telling him his place had officially become a bachelor pad, and he'd laugh, brushing off the suggestion that anyone special was responsible for the sudden flowers on his counter or the new shirts hanging in his closet. I didn't press. A mother knows, but a mother also waits. Liz was blossoming too. She ended the school year on the honor roll again, and her confidence returned slowly but steadily. She started talking about college tours, clubs she wanted to join in her final year, and plans that once terrified her when Adrian was still hovering like a shadow. One afternoon, I found her sitting on the back porch legs, curled up beneath her, typing away on her laptop. "College essay?" I asked. She nodded, then paused, looked at me with a quiet new maturity. "I'm writing about Dad," she said softly, "and how losing him hurt, but how it didn't break us." I walked over and wrapped my arms around her. She leaned back into me, without hesitation. We stayed like that for a long moment, the sun warming our shoulders, her breathing steady and light. She continued, voice thickening just slightly. "I didn't know if we were going to be okay, Mom. A year ago, I was scared. It felt like everything was slipping." I tucked her hair behind her ear. "I was scared too, sweetheart. But you never slipped. Neither did Sam. She paused, then whispered, "You came back to us." Tears pricked my eyes, but they weren't sad ones. They were grateful, healing. As the seasons passed, I realized something quietly profound. I no longer feared being alone. The idea didn't ache the way it once did, didn't sting, didn't feel like a failure. Instead, solitude felt peaceful, honest, a kind of companionship with myself I'd never fully experienced. I still love Lucas. I always would, but not with the desperate grief that consumed me years ago. It was gentler now, integrated into the rhythm of my days, like a steady heartbeat. Adrian had simply been a detour, a reminder that not all love heals. Some love warns, some love teaches, some love redirects, and some, like the love I have for my children, grounds you so deeply that you never fear falling again. This past year taught me resilience I didn't know I had. It taught me the kind of mother I truly want to be, the kind of woman I'm proud to have become, the kind of person who chooses her children without hesitation, even when it means shattering her own heart. I still read the online comments sometimes. I still remember the advice, gentle, blunt, painful wise, from strangers who helped me see the truth when I was too blinded by hope to see it myself. And I wish deeply that everyone who wrote to me had the same support system I have, the same children who stood beside me even when I failed them, the same second chance to rebuild what truly matters. As I move forward with Sam on the brink of adulthood and Liz preparing for her last year of high school, my heart feels full in a way I never expected after everything that happened. Full not because I found new love, but because I rediscovered the love that never left. The love that stayed, grew, endured. The love that was worth breaking for.